Welcome to the Lunchtime Broadcast, which highlights the news making headlines in the land of the brave and beyond, ranging from current affairs to community stories, sports and economic news. Here are the news headlines. 91% of persons with disabilities in Kunene are unemployed, a study shows. Namibian Competition Commission and the Competition and Consumer Authority of Botswana sign a memorandum of understanding. And the Namibian Presidency is tolerant of views on same-sex marriages, but will not tolerate hate speech. Follow all our programs on oneup2.com, DSTV 285, GoTV 25 in Namibia. I am Ashwin Berry, and this is NMH at 1. The Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, Pohamba Shifeta, this morning dehorned rhinos in the Etosha National Park with the park rangers. He explained that this process is crucial for the protection of the rhinos against each other and against poachers. Without the horns, these rhinos are not valuable to poachers, he said. Visual News brings you local stories from across Namibia right after the break. Stay with NMH at 1.
To another exciting episode of Irongo Talk.
Jou lief te weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis heel moontlik gaan byt.
Yesterday marked the opening of the National Conference for Youth from Marginalized Communities and Indigenous Minorities in Namibia, which kicked off in Swakopmund under the theme Bringing on Board Youth from the Marginalized Communities in Order to Leave No One Behind. Deputy Minister of Sport, Youth and National Services Honorable Emma Kantema yesterday addressed the conference. This footage is courtesy of MICT.
I'm elated to be delivering this keynote address at the official opening of the National Conference for Youth from the Marginalized Communities and Indigenous Minorities, which is being co-organized by the National Youth Council, the Ministry of Gender Equality, Poverty Eradication, and Social Welfare, and together with the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs. Our President, His Excellency Dr. Hage G. Geingob, has shown his commitment to the inclusion of the marginalized communities. I was listening to my senior here, narrating his journey, how he was identified by the former president, our founding father, how he was appointed by the former president. But I want to go a step further where he stopped, where His Excellency, when he took office, he elevated the issues of the marginalized affairs to become part of a ministry, and also that appointment that came through for the deputy minister at that level. I think we should give Dr. Hage G. Geingob a round of applause for that. This is evident in the Harambee Prosperity Plan. We all know the HPP. We are now under HPP2. Under the Zero Deaths from Hunger or Poverty, in this section, the HPP stipulates that there should be a revision and conversion of the food bank, special feeding for marginalized communities, and marginalized grant into a monthly cash transfers. I'm just demonstrating that the issues of inclusion, the issues of empowering those who are marginalized are taking central priority in the HPP. This transition in the HPP has now been done to be in the big, will be paid to the existing food bank and the marginalized grant beneficiaries. Similarly, the NDP5 documents how developmental interventions for persons from the marginalized communities have been rendered ineffective by factors including but not limited to interventions that have been created, that has created structural dependency, absence of social institutions and leadership structures to organize persons from the marginalized communities, and the lack of dedicated strategies that defines integration and mainstreaming, hereby causing an ad hoc approach to the needs of marginalized communities.
The CEO of the Namibia Competition Commission, Vitalis Ndalikokule, yesterday emphasized the importance of Namibia and Botswana's cooperation in assisting to execute their mandates. He made this remark during the official signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Competition and Consumer Authority of Botswana and the Namibian Competition Commission.
The Memorandum of Understanding, Mr. Keseho Modongo from CCA and Ms. Melissa Helmer from the NACC said, quote unquote, "We will give it our best shot." Indeed, they have given it their best shot. That is why we are here today, to formalize the cooperation arrangement between our two authorities. We appreciate the work that the legal team from both sides have done. Thank you, colleagues, for a job well done. The process of clearing the MOU through the Office of the Attorney General here in Namibia and in Botswana have now been completed, and we are cleared basically to sign the Memorandum of Understanding as we are going to do today. As I said earlier, today marks an important day in which the two authorities formalize the cooperation arrangement by way of signing the Memorandum of Understanding. The purpose of this Memorandum of Understanding, as contained in Article 2, is to contribute to effective enforcement of the competition law in Botswana and in Namibia through the establishment of a framework for cooperation between the two competition authorities. In the context of this MOU, the competition authorities will promote in the two countries competition issues by addressing anti-competitive conduct in accordance with the laws and regulations of our respective countries in order to facilitate the development and cooperation of well-functioning markets in our countries.
Menzies Aviation Namibia celebrated a small victory in its case against the Namibia Airports Company on Tuesday. More on this after the break in the newspaper review segment.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment. Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news. Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
We start our newspaper review with the Namibian Sun, the company that has been providing ground handling services at Hosea Kutako International Airport for the past 9 years. Menzies Aviation Namibia celebrated a small victory in its case against the Namibia Airports Company on Tuesday. The Windhoek High Court granted Menzies' application to amend its initial affidavit or submit a supplementary affidavit. This after Menzies claimed that new information had come to light, which called into question the accuracy of tender applications and the validity of a tender for ground handling services at the airport, which was awarded to Paragon Investment Holdings. The paper's page 3 reports that Comoros President and Chairperson of the African Union, Azali Osomani, has pledged support for the realization of the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament as the legislative arm of the AU. He was speaking as a guest of honor at the opening of the second ordinary session of the 6th Parliament, which is currently underway in Johannesburg, South Africa, under the AU theme for 2023, accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. President Hage Geingob is tolerant to the various views on same-sex marriages, but hate speech will not be tolerated, his spin doctor Dr. Alfredo Hengari cautioned. Hengari said this during an interview with Namibian Sun on the controversial topic which had hogged public discourse following a Supreme Court ruling last week, which paved the way for same-sex marriages solemnized outside Namibia to be recognized here. President Geingob promotes a culture of tolerance and respectful disagreement, he said. Hengari added that his presence in an anti-gay marriage WhatsApp group does not signify an endorsement of the group's agenda and certainly does not reflect the views of President Hage Geingob. While acknowledging that he gave the blessing for Namgoma Pesca SA to gain access to Namibia's rich fishing grounds, former Fisheries Minister Bernard Esau said he did so based on recommendations and not of his own accord. The former lawmaker said this in the Windhoek High Court yesterday during his bail application, while maintaining that officials within the Fisheries Ministry spearheaded the process and that they should therefore answer for it. The Allgemeine Zeitung today leads with an article about the desert-adapted lions cohabitating with humans in certain parts of the Namib Desert during the 2022-2023 holiday season. The Namibian Journal of Environment has published an assessment of the simultaneous use of the northern Namib coast by desert-adapted lions and recreational anglers during said season at the Tora Bay in Skeleton Coast National Park. On its page 3, the Allgemeine Zeitung leads with a court appeal which saw convicted child rapist Lupandu Hofeni, who was previously sentenced to 30 years in prison on 2 counts of raping a minor, appealing for a lesser sentence. Hofeni was successful in the Windhoek High Court and will now only have to serve 20 years behind bars. Stay with us as we continue with the Namibian newspaper after the break.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Let's continue with the newspaper review. The Namibian newspaper in its lead story highlights that the number of child maintenance cases has increased since 2020, with Windhoek accounting for the majority of the increase. A total of 582 child maintenance cases were filed in Windhoek in 2020. By 2023, that number had increased to 1,085. These statistics were shared by the Ministry of Justice's spokesperson Edmund Khorseb last month. On the paper's page 3, it reports that British High Commissioner to Namibia, Charles Moore, says no one should dictate how Namibia can use its oil and that he is following the country's exploration developments. Moore said this during a meeting with President Hage Geingob at State House yesterday, where he also commented on the number of Namibians seeking asylum in Britain. A marathon cabinet meeting yesterday directed Prime Minister Sarako Ngelwa-Amadila to assess the impending drought situation in the country with a view to proactively address it. This is despite already having directed Ngelwa-Amadila to extend the drought relief program to the tune of 121 million Namibian dollars to Kunene, as well as parts of Irongo and Omusati. The program runs until May 2024, according to existing criteria. The Coalition of Christian Churches and other organizations announced their intention to spearhead a nationwide campaign against a recent ruling by the Supreme Court regarding same-sex relationships. The coalition aims to rally support and urge the National Assembly to represent the views of Namibian people through the enactment of a parliamentary act that contradicts the court's decision. Tourist inflows improve before Namibia's peak tourism season, May to September, commences. The occupancy rate in April 2023 across the nationwide hospitality establishments stood at 51.8% compared to 36.5% recorded in the same month last year, according to Simona Storm. This is the highest monthly occupancy rate recorded for 2023 thus far. On a monthly basis, national occupancy rates were 11.2 percentage points higher, increasing from 40.7%. Namibia took a significant step towards improving disability data collection during a workshop held recently in Windhoek. This story leads us in economic news.
E-Ticket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nmh.com.na.
According to a study conducted in the Khomas and Kunene regions, 69.72% of persons with disabilities in Khomas and 91% in Kunene are currently unemployed. These alarming statistics highlight the urgent need for intervention to address the challenges faced by these individuals in accessing and retaining employment. The study further identified obstacles that contribute to the high unemployment rates among persons with disabilities: discrimination, lack of education and skills, inaccessible workplaces, transportation limitations, inadequate social protection, and a lack of support services were all identified as significant hurdles to their employment prospects. It also revealed that the majority of persons with disabilities have a gross annual income of less than 16,800 Namibian dollars, further underscoring the economic hardships faced by this marginalized group. Meanwhile, only 10.6% and 1.3% of individuals in Khomas and Kunene have attained higher education, it found. Let's head into the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar trades at 19.21 next to the US dollar. 23.83 Namibian dollars gets you 1 British pound, and 2.73 Namibian dollars gets you a Chinese yuan. Looking at commodities, Let's Say Gold Holdings Namibia made a dip of 0.30%, whilst MTC made an uptick of 0.30% as well. Local index closed up 0.04%. Overall index closed down 0.42%. And looking at commodities, Brent crude oil is the only one that made an upsurge of 0.94%, whilst gold, copper, and zinc all made some downturns. Clashes between rival military factions could be heard overnight in parts of Sudan's capital today, the second full day of a week-long ceasefire. Stick around for the full story as we head into Africa News.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouth-watering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Clashes between rival military factions could be heard overnight in parts of Sudan's capital, residents said today, the second full day of a week-long ceasefire designed to allow for the delivery of aid and lay the ground for a more lasting truce. Now, the ceasefire, which is being monitored by Saudi Arabia and the United States, as well as the warring parties, comes after 5 weeks of intensive warfare in the capital, Khartoum, and outbursts of violence in other areas of the country, including western region of Darfur. Residents of Omdurman, one of the 3 cities around the confluence of the Blue Nile and White Nile rivers that make up Sudan's greater capital, said there had been exchanges of fire late on Tuesday in several areas. Heavy artillery fire could be heard near the Wadi Saidna military base on the outskirts of the capital, they said. Zimbabwe's government will closely regulate voluntary carbon offset trading in a bid to curb greenwashing and ensure benefits for local communities, its environment minister said. The global $2 billion voluntary carbon offset market involves companies buying credits from emission-reducing projects such as renewable energy or planting trees to offset their own emissions. Zimbabwe says organizations operating carbon credit projects in the country were largely unregulated, as they were only registered with local councils and traditional community leaders, a result of which there is no reliable data on the size of Zimbabwe's carbon market. The government now wants all carbon projects to be registered with authorities within the next 2 months. It will take 50% of all revenue from carbon projects, with foreign investors limited to 30% and the balance of 20% going to local communities, Zimbabwe's Environment and Climate Minister Magali Sondlovu said on Monday. We'll be heading into international news shortly. Climate-related disruptions to the crucial Hindu Kush Himalayan water system are posing risks to economic development and energy security in 16 Asian countries, and concerted action is needed to protect regional water flows, researchers said on Wednesday. The basins of the 10 major rivers that flow from the Hindu Kush Himalayan water towers are home to 1.9 trillion people and generate $4.3 trillion in annual GDP. And climate change impacts like glacial melt and extreme weather are already posing grave threats to the China Water Risk think tank said. Now, the researchers warned that all rivers would face escalating and compounding water risks if we are unable to rein in emissions, and that the further construction of water-intensive energy infrastructure was aggravating the problems. As much as 865 gigawatts of power capacity along the 10 rivers is considered vulnerable to climate risk, with most of it reliant on water. More than 300 gigawatts, enough to power Japan, is situated in regions facing high or extremely high water risks, the researchers added. Now, Ricardo Manetti's contract with African Stars has come to an end. We'll be heading into local sports after the break.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraifa. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
Let's head into local sport on NMH at 1. Ricardo Manetti's contract with the African Stars has come to an end, the Debmarine Premiership champions announced. Manetti was appointed Director of Football last year in November to help the club in their quest to win the league. The club wishes Manetti well on his future endeavors. Namibian sprinter Christine Mboma is excited ahead of the launch of her maiden clothing collection named Mboma Streetwear. The Olympic silver medalist has been hard at work for some time as she obtained 2 certificates in fashion accessories store owner and entrepreneurship at the International Association of Professions Career College. The town of Okakarara will have a team in the country's top flight league when the Debmarine Premiership League starts with the new season. Stay with us as we start news with Manchester City and coach Pep Guardiola.
Evening and welcome to Sunset News.
Actually stays in list A in the speech, rate and taxes, and how much.
After the break, we take a look at the sports.
We bring you
economic indicators, tomorrow's weather, and sports. I am Aina Raiza Kweo.
In international sport, Manchester City coach Pep Guardiola would like the financial charges against the club to be dealt with as soon as possible. City, who secured their 5th title in 6 seasons under Guardiola last weekend, were charged by the Premier League in February with more than 100 alleged breaches of the league's financial rules between 2009 and 2018. Cristiano Ronaldo scored a stunning winner on Tuesday as Al Nassr came back to beat visitors Al Shabab 3-2 and put Al Ittihad's Saudi Pro League title celebrations on hold. Al Ittihad remain favourites to clinch the title with 2 games remaining in the season after beating Al Batin 1-0 through Romarino's header in the 9th minute. Bukayo Saka has signed a new long-term contract at Arsenal, the Premier League club announced on Tuesday. The England forward played a pivotal role in the club's unsuccessful title push this season, scoring 14 goals in all competitions, as well as providing 11 assists. If you are just joining us, this is NMH at 1, and we'll get into the highlights from today's broadcast right after this.
To another exciting episode of Top. We bring you your latest.
Dis weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis heel moontlik kan byt.
Let's get into the highlights from this afternoon's broadcast. Clashes between rival military factions could be heard overnight in parts of Sudan's capital, residents said today, the second full day of a week-long ceasefire designed to allow for the delivery of aid. Climate-related disruptions to the crucial Hindu Kush Himalayan water system are posing risks to economic development and energy security in 16 Asian countries. And Ricardo Manetti's contract with African Stars has come to an end, the Deb Marine Premiership champions announced. Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa and the world, ranging from current affairs to economic news, sports and international headlines. It's goodbye from us in studio.